I never believed in demons. At least, not until the night I met her. Her name, if you can even call it a name, was whispered into my head the first time I saw her. It wasn't a word, more like a sound too sharp for human tongues. A crack of lightning caught in a syllable. I couldn't pronounce it, but my mind understood. And from that moment, she never let me go. It began, as most damnations do, with loneliness. I had just moved into a crumbling apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't much. Peeling paint, buzzing pipes, and an odor like old water trapped in walls. But the rent was cheap, and I was desperate. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake listening to the creaks above me, the faint shuffle of footsteps in empty halls, the strange scratching in the vents. Then came the dreams. At first, they were just shadows. A woman standing at the end of my bed, her face obscured, her body unnaturally still. She never moved, never spoke. I'd wake drenched in sweat, my heart galloping, only to find my room empty. But the smell lingered. Burnt roses and iron. The scent of something both beautiful and rotten. On the seventh night, she touched me. In the dream, I felt a hand on my cheek. Cold, but tender. When I opened my eyes, she was closer than ever. A pale figure, her skin stretched tight and flawless. Her eyes two pools of liquid black. Her lips curved in something between a smile and a sneer. "You called me," she whispered. I didn't speak. My throat locked up, my chest tightening as if invisible chains bound me to the bed. "You asked to be loved," she said again, her voice low, vibrating inside my skull. And here I am. The strangest thing wasn't the terror crawling through my veins. It was the warmth spreading in my chest. A dangerous comfort, as if some part of me had longed for her. When I woke, I expected her to vanish like every nightmare before. But she didn't. She stayed. I saw her in the corners of my apartment watching me, in mirrors, standing just behind my reflection, in the gaps between blinks, her form lingering like an afterimage burned into my vision. And slowly, impossibly, I began to crave her presence. It started with whispers. I'd lie awake at night, and she'd speak in that static-filled voice, telling me secrets about my neighbors, about people on the street, about myself. She knew things no one should know. Childhood fears I'd buried, guilts I never confessed. She pulled them out, one by one, and cradled them like treasures. "You don't need anyone else," she murmured. "I can give you everything." And I believed her. The first time she kissed me, my lips burned. It wasn't human warmth. It was like pressing against ice that burned instead of cooled. But I didn't pull away. I leaned into it, desperate, starved. When her teeth grazed my lower lip, I tasted blood. She licked it away, sighing as though she'd waited centuries for that moment. Days blurred after that. I stopped going to work. Friends stopped calling. I didn't care. All that mattered was her. Every night she came closer. Every day I longed for her touch. I knew she wasn't human. I knew her smile was too sharp, her shadow too long, her whispers too heavy with malice. But I didn't care. I was drowning, and she was the hand pulling me deeper. That's when the deaths began. The first was my upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Halpern. She was old, frail, always carrying her little dog in her arms. I found her door open one morning, the dog barking hysterically. Inside, her body was crumpled on the floor, her eyes wide and blackened, as if something had sucked the life straight out of her. I should have called someone. I should have screamed. But when I turned, the demon was standing behind me. "She heard us," she whispered. I couldn't let her ruin us. And instead of horror, instead of rage, I felt something worse. Gratitude. She was protecting me. I wish I could tell you I fought it, that I screamed at her, demanded she leave me alone, called the police, prayed to whatever God might have still been listening. But the truth is uglier. I didn't fight. I let her closer, Every day, her grip on me grew tighter. Food lost its taste unless she was near. Music sounded flat, voices hollow, colors dim. Only she had weight, only she had color, only she felt real. Everything else was ash. "You're mine now," she told me once, curling her fingers around mine. Her hand was cold, but it fit too perfectly, like it had been carved for me. "Say it." I whispered it back. "I'm yours." And her smile. God. Her smile was both heaven and hell. The next death came 2 nights later. My friend Marcus knocked on my door. I hadn't seen him in weeks. He barged in, eyes wild. "You look like shit," he said. "What the hell have you been doing?" "Your boss called me. You've gone AWOL, man." Everyone's worried I tried to wave him off, but his eyes scanned the room, narrowing. "Who's here with you?" I can feel it, I froze. He wasn't supposed to know. No one was supposed to know. And then she appeared. Not to me. He saw her too. His face drained of blood, his mouth falling open. "Jesus Christ," he gasped. "What the fuck is that?" She didn't let him finish. In an instant, Marcus was on the floor, his throat carved open by something I never saw her move with. Blood spread across my carpet. I stood there, paralyzed, while she stepped over his twitching body. "You don't need him," she said softly, licking her fingers clean. "You only need me." I should have collapsed. I should have vomited. Instead, I knelt, cradled her hand, and kissed it. "I only need you," I said. And that was the moment I realized how far gone I was. The line between dreams and waking life dissolved completely after Marcus. I'd fall asleep and wake to her on top of me, her black eyes staring into mine, her breath smelling like roses wilting in blood. I'd walk through the city and glimpse her reflection in windows, her figure pacing beside me even when no one else could see. She began to change me. My skin grew pale. My eyes grew darker. People on the street avoided me without knowing why. I caught myself smiling at the thought of someone hurting me, because I knew she'd kill them if they tried. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was complicit, and I loved her. Not in the way I'd loved anyone before. Not with nervous laughter or late-night texts or shy touches. This was deeper, primal. Like my soul had been hollow all my life, and she was the thing that filled it. But demons don't love like humans. One night as I lay in bed, she whispered, "Do you want to see what I really am?" Every instinct screamed no, but my mouth said yes. Her body unraveled, skin split like paper, peeling back. Her face folded inward, revealing teeth where no teeth should be, eyes opening across her torso, wings of sinew unfurling from her back. She towered over me, a nightmare sculpted into flesh. I should have run. Instead, I reached up and touched her cheek, or what passed for it. "You're beautiful," I whispered. She shuddered, her form collapsing back into the woman I knew. For the first time, I saw something almost human flicker in her eyes. "You're mine," she repeated, but her voice cracked, trembling like she wasn't sure anymore who belonged to whom. That's when the knocking started. Every night around 3 a.m., my door rattled, harder and harder each time. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there. But I could hear them. Voices, layered and distorted, chanting in some language that scraped against my brain. She wouldn't let me open the door. "They want you back," she hissed. "But you're mine now." I asked her who they were, but she never answered. The knocking grew violent. One night, the wood splintered, the hinges groaning. I shoved a chair against the door, heart hammering. She stood in the middle of the room, watching, her smile wider than ever. "Would you die for me?" she asked. The question lodged in my throat. Would I? "I already have," I whispered. Her laughter shook the walls. After that night, I stopped checking the peephole. Whatever waited outside wasn't for me anymore. It was for her, and she wasn't going to let them in. But the world outside noticed my absence. They started knocking too. Not the voices, but real people. First, it was my boss. He pounded on my door at noon, yelling that if I didn't come out, I was fired. I didn't answer. I sat cross-legged on the floor, her hand in mine, while he screamed through the wood. Eventually, his footsteps faded. Then it was my sister. She hadn't spoken to me in years, not since our parents' funeral, when I told her I didn't care if we drifted apart. But now she was outside, calling my name, her voice breaking. "Please," she begged, "let me see you. I'm worried. Just 5 minutes, okay? Just 5. I wanted to open the door. God, I wanted to. For a second, her voice cut through the fog in my brain, reminding me of birthdays, movie nights, laughter, something human, something real. But then the demon tightened her grip on my shoulder. "She'll take you from me," she hissed. "If you open that door, I'll kill her." And I believed her, so I stayed quiet. My sister cried for nearly an hour. I sat on the floor, shaking, while the demon stroked my hair and whispered lullabies in that awful, static voice. Eventually, my sister left. And the guilt didn't last. Because when I turned back to the demon, she was smiling like a lover, and I felt whole again. The next death was different. It wasn't her protecting me this time. It was me protecting her. A group of men came pounding at my door just after midnight. Neighbors, I think. One of them shouted that they'd called the police, that they'd smelled rot coming from my apartment. Another yelled that they'd seen shadows moving at my window, things that weren't human. The demon crouched in the corner, her teeth bared. "They'll take me away," she snarled, and I couldn't allow that. I grabbed the kitchen knife. My body moved without thought, like I'd been rehearsing for this moment all my life. When the men forced the door open, I met them with the blade. I don't remember much after that. Just the screaming, the hot spray of blood across my face, the way she stood behind me, guiding my arm, whispering encouragement like I was doing something noble. When it was over, the hallway was silent, their bodies twisted on the floor. I turned to her, chest heaving, knife trembling in my hand. "Did I do good?" I asked. She smiled wider than ever. "Perfect." And she kissed me, there among the corpses, until the world spun and my knees gave out. Something was happening to me. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't always recognize myself. My reflection's eyes were darker, hungrier. Sometimes its mouth moved when mine didn't. Once I watched it grin at me for a full 10 seconds before I smashed the glass. My voice changed too. Deeper, harsher, with a rasp like ash in my throat. I found myself speaking words I didn't understand, syllables that tasted like smoke and salt on my tongue. Whenever I did, she beamed at me with pride, like a mother watching her child take its first steps. "You're becoming mine," she whispered, "piece by piece." And I wanted it. I wanted more. But the outside world didn't stop trying. Police came next. They knocked, they shouted, they threatened to break in. I sat in the dark with her, listening to their voices echo through the halls. My heart raced, but she only laughed. "They think they can take you," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "They don't understand. You belong to me now." That night, I dreamed of fire. The building burning down, neighbors screaming, ash swirling through the sky, and in the middle of it all, she stood tall, her wings stretching wide, her hand holding mine. When I woke, the hallway smelled of smoke, and I knew the fire was coming. The walls began to rot. At first, it was subtle, a dark stain spreading along the ceiling, cracks branching like veins. But soon the plaster peeled away in strips, revealing something raw beneath. Not wood, not brick, something alive. I pressed my ear against the wall one night and heard it, beating, slow, steady, like the pulse of a heart. She noticed me listening. "It beats for us," she whispered, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "This place belongs to us now." It changes because of our love. But it wasn't just the apartment. The air outside my window thickened, shimmering like heat even in the dead of winter. When I looked out, the city seemed distant, warped, like I was peering through water. People passed by below, but their faces blurred, smeared into nothing. I began to wonder if my apartment was even part of the city anymore, or if she'd pulled it into her world. Food spoiled instantly. The fridge was a graveyard of mold and blackened meat. The water from the tap ran red for 3 days, then turned to a thick, tar-like sludge. I didn't care. I didn't need it. She fed me with her kisses, her touch, her voice dripping into my ears like honey laced with poison. I slept less. Hours, sometimes days would vanish. When I asked her about the time, she only smiled and said, "Time belongs to them, not us." And I was fine with that. But sometimes, when she wasn't looking, I caught glimpses of the truth. The mirror in the bathroom, what little of it remained unbroken, showed me things. My skin was splitting at the edges, fine cracks running up my arms like dry clay. My eyes weren't just dark, they were hollow, pits that glimmered faintly with red light. I should have been horrified, but I traced the cracks with my fingers, almost tenderly. This was proof. Proof I belonged to her. Proof I was becoming hers. The bodies in the hallway never went away. No police came. No neighbors screamed. They just stayed, slowly sinking into the floor, their faces twisted in agony. Sometimes, at night, I heard them whisper. Faint voices bleeding through the walls. Not accusing, not angry. Just begging. Help us. It hurts. Please. I asked her about them once. They envy you, she said, curling against me like a lover. They wish they had what you have. They wish they were mine. But you're the only one. My chosen. And I believed her. Then came the fire. It started with smoke. Thin tendrils creeping through the vents, curling along the ceiling. The walls pulsed faster, the heartbeat thunderous now, shaking the floorboards. I ran to the window, but what I saw outside wasn't fire, not the kind I knew. The city was gone. In its place was a sea of black flame, roaring without heat, writhing like serpents. Faces screamed in the smoke, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. "This is it," she said, smiling wider than ever. "The world burns, but we remain." Just you and me, I should have been terrified. And maybe, somewhere deep inside, I was. But over it all was love. A love so twisted, so consuming, it drowned everything else. So I held her hand, and we watched the world burn. The fire never touched me. I sat by the window for hours, maybe days, watching the black flames eat everything. Towers fell. Bridges buckled. The sky turned crimson, split with veins of lightning that never ended. But inside my apartment, there was only silence, or so I thought. The whispers grew louder. Not just the bodies in the hallway. These came from the vents, from the pipes, from the walls that pulsed with that endless heartbeat. They called my name, over and over, sometimes pleading, sometimes mocking. One night, they grew so loud I pressed my hands over my ears and screamed. She touched my shoulder, her smile sharp. "They're jealous," she said. "They're trying to take you from me." Don't listen. But I couldn't stop hearing them. "She's lying to you. You're not chosen. You're trapped. Look closer. Look at her." I did. For a split second, I saw her not as she wanted me to. Not the pale, flawless woman. Not the terrible, beautiful monster. Just nothing. A void shaped like a person. A hole in reality, sucking me in. I stumbled back, choking, but she was on me in an instant. Her hands gripped my face, her nails cutting my skin. "Don't you ever doubt me," she hissed. "You're mine. Say it." I whimpered it, bloody tears streaking my cheeks. "I'm yours." And just like that, the vision was gone. She was beautiful again. My savior. My love. I don't know when the rot reached me. At first, it was just the cracks in my skin. Then the hunger. A hunger that wasn't for food, or water, or even her touch. A hunger for life. The first time, I couldn't help it. A stray cat wandered into the hallway, meowing by the bodies. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed it with trembling hands, and before I realized what I was doing, I pressed my mouth to its chest. I drank. The cat convulsed, shrieking, until it collapsed limp in my arms. Warmth flooded through me, rich and intoxicating. The cracks in my skin glowed faintly, sealing for the first time. She kissed my cheek, beaming like a proud mother. "You're learning," she whispered. "You're becoming perfect." I tried not to think about it. Tried not to think about what it meant that I'd killed. Not with a knife, not in rage, but with hunger. But the craving only grew. Soon, it wasn't enough. I woke one night standing over one of the half-sunken corpses in the hallway, my teeth buried in its flesh. I don't know how long I'd been feeding, but when I looked up, she was watching me, her eyes wide with something like awe. "You're more mine than I ever dreamed," she said softly, and she held me while I sobbed into her chest, tasting blood and rot on my lips. The voices never stopped. Sometimes they screamed, sometimes they begged, sometimes they laughed, cruel and endless. But one voice stood out, a woman's, familiar. My sister. She called to me from beyond the flames, her voice thin but desperate. "You can still come back," she cried. "It's not too late. Please fight her. She's not what you think." I wanted to answer, but the demon's arms coiled around me, her lips brushing my ear. "She's gone," she whispered. "She's ash. Don't believe ghosts." But I could feel it. Something in me knew it was her. And for the first time, doubt cracked through my love. The doubt lingered for hours, days, maybe weeks. Time didn't exist anymore. I couldn't tell. All I knew was her gaze, sharp and patient, watching me from across the room. "You're thinking of her," she said softly. "Don't." I can't," I whispered, voice breaking. "I keep hearing her." Her smile vanished. For the first time, I saw something almost human flash across her face. Anger? Fear? I didn't have time to wonder. She moved faster than my eyes could follow, closing the distance between us. Her hands gripped my face, pressing, shaping, molding. "No," she hissed. "You belong to me. Everything else is gone." I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I couldn't. Because in that moment, I understood something terrifying. She wasn't asking me to choose. She had already chosen for me. The apartment, or what had once been an apartment, split open. The walls bled black fire. The floors cracked and writhed. The bodies in the hallway rose, skeletal and hollow-eyed, their mouths moving in silent screams. And still, she held me. "I'll keep you safe," she said, "from everything." I believed her. I felt it then, the final transformation. My skin peeled like paper, revealing the same black, glimmering substance beneath hers. My eyes sank into pits that burned with red light. My hands split at the edges, claws forming where fingers had been. Pain, ecstasy, fear, and love all swirled into one, and I screamed. Or maybe I laughed. I didn't know anymore. I was hers, completely. The world outside didn't matter. Fire roared beyond the windows, the sky cracked with lightning, and voices begged for my return. But inside, there was only her. We walked through the ruins together. My hand in hers felt natural now, inevitable. I could feel her heartbeat in mine, the pulsing of her black wings brushing against my back. "You're perfect," she whispered. "No one else matters. No one will ever matter again." And I believed it. The voices tried to call me, tried to remind me of who I was. My sister, Marcus, my neighbors, my old life. They all screamed and wailed, but their cries sounded like echoes from another world. I was already in hers. We danced in the ashes of the city, the black fire licking our feet, the walls of my apartment, or whatever had replaced it, pulsing with life. My reflection was hers, and hers was mine. We were one being now, inseparable, infinite, terrifying. I had loved a demon, and in the end, I had become one too. The world outside burned, and I didn't care. Because in the dark, in the fire, in the endless whispers and screams, she smiled at me, and I smiled back. The end. After we became one, the world outside no longer existed in any meaningful way. The city, the sky, the streets, all had melted into a river of black fire and ash. But inside our domain, time stretched and twisted. Hours could be seconds. Days could be a heartbeat. I lost count. The apartment, or what it had become, was alive now. The walls pulsed in sync with our merged heartbeat, breathing with a rhythm that matched ours. Shadows moved across the floor even in the absence of light. Whispers emerged from the cracks, voices folded in layers, chanting words I almost understood. I walked down the hallway one night, which had become impossibly long, stretching into an endless tunnel of decaying wallpaper and skeletal bodies fused into the floor. Their eyes followed me, pleading, screaming, laughing. I passed without touching them, without hesitation. The demon, or what I had once called her, floated beside me. Her hand gripped mine, icy and warm at the same time. "They watch because they envy," she said, her voice echoing in my mind. "You are chosen. You are mine. You were always mine." The whispers changed when she spoke. They became frantic, hissing, almost angry. I tried to focus on the voices, to hear the words, but they were drowned out by the pulse that now ran in my veins. Every beat of my heart, every breath I took, resonated with her presence. I was her. She was me. I began to see them everywhere. The dead, my sister, Marcus, neighbors, shadows that weren't supposed to be there. I could almost hear their thoughts, small fragments of memory that made me shiver. But when I reached out, nothing tangible remained. They were illusions, twisted by her influence, or mine. I began to hear new voices as well. Some whispered truths I didn't want to know. They whispered about the world before her, about a life I had left behind, about love and loss and regret. But when I tried to listen, she would tighten her grip on my hand, and the voices would vanish, replaced by her singing, a low, haunting lullaby that sank into my bones. One night, I awoke. Or maybe I didn't sleep at all. The apartment was silent. Too silent. The heartbeat had stopped. The walls had gone still. I felt a tremor in my chest, a pang of something I couldn't identify. Fear, doubt, a memory of who I once was. She appeared beside me, more beautiful and terrifying than ever. Her eyes glimmered like molten pitch. She traced a finger along my jaw, tilting my head until I met her gaze. "You felt it," she said softly. "You almost remembered." I couldn't speak. I couldn't deny it. For the first time in what felt like centuries, a fragment of me rebelled. A fragment wanted to run. She smiled, but it was thin and dangerous, the kind of smile that promised pain. "You can't. You're mine. You've always been mine." The hallucinations intensified. Walls shifted into landscapes I didn't recognize. Forests of black trees with leaves like knives, rivers of molten glass, skies bleeding red. Creatures crawled through the shadows, staring with hollow eyes. Sometimes, I thought I heard my sister calling from somewhere beyond, her voice raw with desperation. Other times, I saw Marcus walking toward me, his eyes dark pits, a smile that was all teeth. But she was always there. Her presence was a shield, a chain, a warm embrace that made me forget everything else. "You're perfect," she whispered one night, as we floated through a corridor that stretched into infinity. "Do you feel it? How perfect we are together. We don't need anyone else. Not the dead. Not the living. Not the world." I nodded, though part of me, tiny, fragile, felt a pang of sorrow. Something I had been before. Something human. Then the fire came again. It wasn't like the first time. This fire was alive. The black flames coiled like snakes, licking the walls, spiraling toward the ceiling. Smoke-formed faces, mouths moving, screaming in every language I had ever known and some I could not comprehend. The heat, though there was no real warmth, pressed against my skin, searing and numbing simultaneously. We walked through it together. I felt the pulse of her wings brushing my back, guiding me through the chaos. And yet, every now and then, a flicker of memory caught me. My mother's face, my father's voice, my sister's laugh. Each memory stabbed at me, fading instantly as she pressed closer, feeding on my faltering resistance. I lost count of how many I had consumed. Animals, humans, shadows of people who had once been real. Each time the cracks in my skin glowed brighter, sealing, reshaping me, making me more like her. And yet, with each act, a fragment of me felt wrong. One day, I think it was a day, I saw a reflection in what remained of the mirror. Not just my eyes, but hers too. Not just our shapes, but something else behind it. Countless mouths, teeth gnashing, wings spreading into the infinite, stretching the boundaries of reality. I felt the weight of all the lives I had touched, drained, destroyed. And I smiled, because I loved her. The world had become unrecognizable. What had once been a city was now a twisted landscape of fire and shadow, bodies suspended in the air, twisted architecture growing from the ground like tumors. Yet in the center, in our haven, there was calm. Silence. Our pulse. Our love. "You see?" she whispered, lips brushing my ear. "Nothing matters." "Only us," I nodded, fully understanding for the first time. The fragments of humanity, the memories, the voices, they were dust. They had always been dust. I was hers. We were hers. And as the fire consumed everything else, I stepped into her, into the final collapse, feeling every crack and pulse and shadow merge with mine. The whispers became a roar. The city dissolved. The sky bled. And in that moment, I was reborn as something terrible, infinite and perfect. We danced in the ash together, and the world died quietly around us. The last remnants of the world clung to life in shreds of smoke and ash. Buildings buckled like paper, streets curled into themselves, and the sky roared with an endless storm of fire and shadows. But inside our sanctuary, there was only stillness. Only her. I felt the final pull, the last thread of my humanity unraveling. My skin split fully now, blackened and glossy, veins glowing red with her essence. My eyes were no longer mine, no longer human. They reflected infinity, darkness and fire, a mirror to her soul. My heartbeat matched hers, a single rhythm that echoed in every corner of the ruins. She lifted her hand, and I followed without thought. The walls bent to her will, growing, twisting, opening into new corridors of shadow and bone. The whispers of the dead rose, hundreds of voices entwining into one, a song of mourning, rage, and envy. But I heard nothing except her. "You're complete," she said softly, brushing my cheek with her clawed fingers. Her touch burned, and I shivered, wanting more. "Do you feel it? How powerful we are together." I did. I felt it in my bones, in my cracked and reshaped skin, in the pulse that now carried not just blood, but fire, life, and death. Every atom of me resonated with her, vibrating in sync. I was hers in every way, utterly, and it felt exquisite. We stepped into the center of the ruins. Fire licked the ground beneath our feet, thick smoke coiling around us like living serpents. Shapes shifted in the flames, people, animals, memories, but I didn't notice them. Only her. Only us. Only the infinite possibilities of our union. And then I sensed the hunger one last time. Not for flesh, not for blood, not for life, for existence itself. The world had been ours to consume. The city, the people, the history. They all belonged to her now. To me, through her. I reached out, and with a thought, a flick of my mind, the ruins warped further. Buildings folded, streets cracked, and shadows swallowed everything else. I laughed. Or maybe it was a scream. The sound was not human, carried with fire and darkness, reverberating across the void we had made. She joined me, her wings unfurling, wrapping us both in a cocoon of shadow and flame. The whispers tried one last time. My sister, Marcus, neighbors, friends. They all called, pleading, crying, demanding my return. But I was beyond them, beyond regret, beyond love or hate that had once belonged to the human world. I pressed my hand to hers, our claws interlocked, our eyes, hers, mine, one and the same, gleamed with satisfaction and terror, beauty and malice. We are eternal, she whispered. We are perfect. Nothing can touch us now, I felt it. The final merger. My last shred of humanity shattered, dissolving into her essence. I was her. She was me. And in the center of the black flames, the pulsing walls, the twisted shadows, I understood that there would be no end. Not for us, not for our world, not for the love that had destroyed everything and yet had made us whole. We rose above the ruins, wings stretching, claws gripping the void, and I saw the infinite horizon of fire and shadow. It was ours. We were perfect, terrifying, complete. The world had burned. I had burned. And yet, inside that burning, I had never felt more alive. She smiled at me. I smiled back. And in that eternal fire, we danced together forever. Two beings of darkness, love, and destruction. Inseparable, infinite, and utterly alone. That's it. This is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, PLS, like and subscribe. Also comment what would you do in this situation. That's it. This was Nightmare Vault. Goodbye and have a scary night.